It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining, flowers are in bloom, and Savor Idaho, Idaho's premier wine event, returns to the Idaho Botanical Garden in Boise on Sunday, June 8th. There you can sample the best of Idaho wines and ciders, stroll the beautiful gardens, grab a bite from local food trucks, enjoy live music, and much more. So slip on the shades, pull up a glass, and enjoy award-winning Idaho wines and ciders at Savor Idaho. Purchase your tickets today at idahowines.org. You must be 21 or over to attend. Today on CityCast Boise, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is back. And while it's entertaining to watch these women fight for views, brand deals, and mom talk survival, are they also unintentionally showcasing some of Mormonism's most uncomfortable truths? I'm joining CityCast Salt Lake's Ali Vallarta to dig in. It's Wednesday, May 28th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about.
Lindsay Van Allen, host of CityCast Boise, you sent me a message on Slack saying you wanted to talk about our newest reality TV show, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. First, can you just give me a skinny premise for the uninitiated?
So the premise of the show is there were these active, air quotation marks, it comes out in the show, LDS moms who are viral sensations on TikTok and very popular. They were doing videos together. And then there was a scandal because it turned out some of them were swinging with each other or soft swinging. Mm-hmm. And it kind of caused an implosion in their community. And then Hulu optioned this show talking about who are these women, how are they navigating this world of being TikTok viral famous and soft swinging and existing in this more conservative, traditional type LDS community. And so just kind of exploring the nuances or discrepancies in what they portray versus what's really going on.
Yeah. And the fallout, because one of them, Taylor Frankie Paul, is probably the name you know. She basically posted a video, went live and exposed kind of all of them without their permission, which feels like it was what led to the unraveling. I should say mom talk is the key word here. That was what they called themselves, this group of women who were making these TikTok videos. Before we move on, please define soft swinging.
So according to Taylor Frankie Paul, soft swinging was basically everything up to actual sex. So it sounded like they were doing things with people who weren't their partners or spouses, but they all had to be in the same room. And there were certain acts that nobody could do, even though certain acts were allowed. Now, I don't know if that's an official definition or if that's the kind of definition they came up with or the term they came up with, but that is how she has described it. And several of these other mom talk moms have described it.
Yeah. So you're a former member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. These women are self-described LDS women. What is your impression of this show?
I think on the surface, yes, it's reality TV. We all love this. We love watching kind of a disaster, kind of, what the drama, what's going on. But it also, I was very surprised that this show, as someone who used to be LDS, touches on or scratches the surface on some very deep nuances and things within Mormonism or the LDS faith tradition. There's discussions about the patriarchy. What does it mean to be a Mormon mom and wife who is financially supporting your family when that's traditionally the role of the husband? And still within that culture is the expectation that the husband is doing that. What is it okay to compromise your religious values on, what is not, or what is considered a compromise? Is it okay to drink, wear clothes where you're clearly not wearing the Mormon garments? It kind of touches on all that. What does it mean to be a modern Mormon? And then there's discussions within the group of, does that constitute being a Mormon? Do you have to abide by these certain rules to be considered Mormon or not?
I watched, full disclosure, I've only seen the first episode, and I watched it just last night in preparation to chat with you about this. I wrote down as I was watching issues that came up in just episode 1. Here's my list. Patriarchy, porn addiction, teen pregnancy, intimate partner violence, alcohol and drug addiction. That's 47 minutes of Mormon women talking about these things. You mentioned like that it's raising all these questions. Who's the judge and who's the jury in this debate?
Oh, I think it ends up being the viewer, as is with reality TV. They portray things a certain way, and you look at it. I think it shows that there are different types of orthodoxy within Mormonism. Mormonism isn't like other religions in that, you know, you have people of different faith traditions who might be loosely associated with those faith traditions. Their family raised them that way. They don't really participate except for holidays, special ceremonies, or they consider themselves culturally that religion. That is very frowned upon in Mormonism. It's called being a buffet Mormon, where you pick and choose the things you want to follow.
I've never heard that term.
Oh, yes. It's cherry picking. It's super frowned upon, very heavily discouraged. And so there's a nuance that comes up in the show, or not even nuance, it's a very major plot point, this idea of saints versus sinners.
This notion of hierarchy in Mormonism, I think, was previously raised by Lisa Barlow of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City when she defined herself, 2-3 years ago now, as Mormon 2.0 because she drinks. And this feels like it's really building on that notion, which was new to so many people, even me as someone who lives in Salt Lake City, down the street from church headquarters. There is so much discourse online around this show and who gets to call themselves a member of the faith. And this is also a faith where I feel like you're in or you're out feels quite literal in Mormonism. Even the fact that like you have to have a temple recommend. Are you on the rolls or like the official register? Like there are a lot of ways in which like your connection to the faith is quite literally taken into account.
Yes.
What do you think about this? Like who gets to say they're connected to Mormonism or that they're Mormon?
You know, I fully have to like qualify this, that I'm coming at this from a place of having left the faith. You know, I think everybody should be able to define who they are and what they are in their relation to a religion or a group. But the church itself doesn't necessarily take that stance, where they have some pretty rigid guidelines about who they feel are members. And the interesting thing with the LDS faith is there are a lot of different teachings. Different leaders say all kinds of different things. And so you can everybody has a way that they can justify what they want to do or what they want to believe or what kind of a Mormon they want to be, and find a leader they can point to for why they're doing what they're doing. It's a huge issue. And I will also disclose, I was the judgiest Mormon. I was raised to live it with exactness, and I did. I really never drank. Like my husband and truly, we were really, really true, trying to be as true believing Mormon as we could. Yeah. And there is a hierarchy there. So I'm living these I'm a very good Mormon. I'm an excellent Mormon. I'm very righteous. And you are taught to look down and encourage other people to do better or be an example to them of how to be a better Mormon and a better person. And so that's encouraged, and it does create these very toxic hierarchies and dynamics where you judge people for things that become associated with your value as a person that are very superficial, like drinking or what clothes you wear. And your barrel curl. Yes, exactly. And in that aspiration to be perfect, which can include, trying to change your body, but also how you act, you do look down on people who maybe look at the rules a little differently or are customizing the beliefs to what feels right to them. And so I do feel for these women that they're trying to figure out who they are. A lot of them are very young. They're trying to figure out who they are. They're having success online. They're popular. They maybe don't fully align with the complete doctrines of the church, but they still consider themselves Mormon. But so many times throughout the episodes, they talk about, oh, maybe I'm not such a good Mormon, or I don't follow all the rules, or maybe I'm not such a good person. And I see myself in that. And I saw that with a lot of these women, that they're being called out for doing very normal things and shamed for them when other people on the show are also breaking the rules in different ways, and called out as being called out literally as sinners. And that is a toxic dynamic. It's a very, they make it very blatant, but it is a more subtle thing that really truly does happen within Mormon culture.
Yeah. Is that fair, though? Because I think, I mean, like, as someone who lives in Salt Lake City, we don't hear from the church often. They prefer to ignore something than get in the mix. And they've kind of gotten in the mix on this. Like, the church itself is trying to distance itself from this group of women. It is saying they do not represent the LDS faith, and they are not actors of the LDS faith. And yet, like, all of these issues that they're raising are Utah problems, right? Intimate partner violence, patriarchy, like addiction. These are all things we talk about. Mental health. We talk about these things all the time in this state. Is it fair for the church to say these aren't Mormons?
Oh, I think absolutely not. Like they are very clearly, everything that is happening indirectly or directly is tied to their religion and their religious upbringing. And like from being a member of the church, I understand why they are trying to distance themselves, because this isn't a good look. Like a lot of things come up, like only men holding the priesthood, the idea that women should be subservient or, let their husband take the lead, this idea of policing women's bodies and what they wear and what can women do with their bodies or their sexuality, what this pressure to get married young, to have babies young before your prefrontal cortex is even fully developed.
Yeah. We have a 16-year-old. We have a woman on the show who had her first child at 16 with a man who I think was 21 or 22, which is just briefly touched on in the first episode.
Yeah. And that's something I grew up in Rigby. And I had people I went to high school with who got married as teenagers, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, to return missionaries who were 21. And they were pregnant, some of them, before marriage. They got pregnant shortly after. So that's not a rare thing. But this isn't the squeaky clean image that LDS Church likes to present. It likes, squeaky clean missionaries, squeaky clean buildings, squeaky clean temples. And there is a lot underneath that is problematic and toxic and issues that are a little bit shoved under the rug in some cases, but don't reflect this church in the best light. But that doesn't mean they're not real. And it doesn't mean these people aren't members of that faith just because their lived experience is maybe just not a picture perfect example of what's happening. Hey Boise, it's Lindsay. Let's keep it real. If you've got something great to offer, like a business or an event, you should be advertising with us. People in Boise trust us to tell them what's good, and that could be you. Our listeners care about what's happening, and they love a good local recommendation. So if you want to make sure the best audience in town knows about you, then advertise on CityCast Boise. Learn more by emailing us at ads@citycast.fm. That's ads@citycast.fm.
Ah, Smart Water. Pure, crisp taste.
That's really good water.
It's the kind of water that says, I have my life together.
I do feel more sophisticated.
Smart Water. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
There's been a lot of dirty laundry aired on this show. And even in the first episode, the main character, Taylor Frankie Paul, says to her mother in a conversation that she hasn't mentioned any of the things she's dealing with to her bishop, which is, the local church leader, because she's afraid she'll get excommunicated. Mm-hmm. And do you think there will be consequences for talking so publicly about their lives, like via TikTok and now this reality TV show, for these young women? Because again, these aren't like housewives who are like usually into their 40s and 50s and are like pretty established and whatever. These are like 23, 25, 27-year-old young women.
This is fascinating for me in particular because my husband and I wrote a blog post about polygamy and we were threatened with excommunication. That's ultimately why we ended up leaving the Mormon faith, is we were shown the door. So it has been really interesting. That was about a decade ago. It has been really interesting to me to watch kind of this evolution of more publicly wearing clothes where you're clearly not wearing garments or drinking. I don't think they should be punished. And again, I know this is me saying this as someone who's not currently part of the faith. I'm sure a lot of people would have a different feeling. But I'm really curious to see that, because I was surprised at how blatant they were about some things very publicly. Like, I'm sure they made that confessional spot real cozy, made it feel like you're just talking to me. Don't worry about it. I mean, they're saying things that, like, as an active member of the church, you couldn't have waterboarded out of me. And so they have been very open, and I don't know if there will be consequences. I don't know if there will be repercussions. I know that it has felt recently like the Mormon church, the LDS church, has pulled back on that a little bit because they've had some high profile excommunications that were really bad publicity. I'm interested to see, because these women are so famous and so viral, that if they did have repercussions like excommunication, that would be also very public and maybe something the church doesn't want to deal with. So I'm really interested to see what happens.
I'm trying to figure out if I think this show is bad for the church or good for the church, because this is a faith that bases itself around a missionary format. It grows by sending missionaries into communities to represent the church and spread the word. And yes, these women are contending with some pretty salacious issues on this show. They are also creating a national, global platform for this faith that makes it look kind of fun.
Oh, absolutely.
There's part of me that's like, is the church out of one side of its mouth potentially issuing a statement, eschewing itself from this, while also maybe acknowledging, because they tend to be pretty savvy, that like, this might not be bad for them.
I think both things can be true at the same time, because out of one side of their mouth, they're saying these women are not real members of our church. They aren't good representation of our church. And so for a certain percentage of the LDS population, they're going to hold on to that. They're going to be like, yep, we have nothing to do with them. Don't watch the show. But what you're seeing is, like, I mean, let's talk about what the show is. It's these beautiful, young, fit women who live these glamorous lives. You know, it shows them they're getting Botox, they're getting fizz soda, you know, like they're traveling to Vegas, like they're staying in Park City for their birthday, like they're living these very glamorous lives and saying like, and family's really important to me, and community is really important to me, and sisterhood is really important to me, and those are all part of my religion. And so, you know, for someone who looks at that and is like, well, maybe I want to be in the sisterhood of mom talk. I also want to, you know, be like these women and live this glamorous life with these women, or, you know, make all this money and, you know, live like how these women do. For some people, that could be a big missionary moment. So I think it's just going to depend on what people gravitate towards. They've given two messages, or, you know, more explicitly had one and then maybe a more subtle message. And so whoever those messages speak to, they're going to find what they want to find in them.
Yeah. It feels almost like this show is if the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders prioritized their own pleasure.
Yes. No, I agree. I think that is a very accurate description of what is happening. Absolutely.
And I love that pleasure takes center stage in this show. I think it might be the thing that makes it the most watchable for me, even as someone who's not really that into reality TV. No, reality itself can also beat feet, but I'm not that into reality TV.
No, I was very surprised at how much of the plot line revolves around this idea of women's pleasure, of accepting their bodies, of their sexuality, of who they are independent of their husbands and their families. Because even 10 years ago, that was not really a discussion we Mormon women were having. Those were taboo subjects. I mean, they talk about vibrators. They're talking about promoting those on their social media channels. Never in my time as someone who's LDS, would I have thought that that was okay, or that I could do that without some major repercussions? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times in the show, they talk about, we're doing this for mom talk. We're doing this for the sisterhood. And I think sometimes they're convincing themselves, but I do think there is something to being more public about saying, yes, I am LDS. And you know what? I am also sexual. I do have wants and needs and a sense of self outside of just being a mom, outside of just being a wife, that I am also an independent person, and that might look different now than it did for previous generations. And I'm curious to see if this will change things for the LDS culture, or if there will be a backlash against it as like, oh, they're very superficial though. Look, they're breaking the rules. They're breaking up their families. I'm curious to see what will happen with that.
The whole country has taken fascination with Latter-day Saints for a long time now. That's no secret. Mm-hmm. And there are even longtime non-Mormon Utahns, or here in Salt Lake, we've got it. I'm sure in Boise, it's the same. I have friends who call the LDS Church a cult, even though they might have lived in Utah for 20 years, right? But this fall, Mormonism is showing up in TV and movies like it feels like never before. It's everywhere. I want to know what you think, what is there to gain and what is there to lose from this moment of, let's call it, Mormon intrigue?
Oh, yes. I'm going to go with the gain first. I think shining a spotlight on things like the LDS Church, it's a very important thing, because people's outside perspectives, people who had never been LDS, people who were less familiar with it, their perspectives on things happening within the church were revelatory for me. I had been taught to see things a very specific way, to view things a very specific way, and then interacting with people online and seeing these different perspectives or seeing their reaction to my beliefs was shocking to me and really changed my perspective on a lot of things. And I think that is important. Now, you have to be open to it, but being able to see yourself and your culture and your religion through somebody else's eyes is a huge gift and a huge way to be able to change and grow as a person. And so I like getting more attention on, what is functioning, how is patriarchy functioning within Mormonism, and how does that affect people's everyday lives? What about this culture of getting married young and having kids young? How is that affecting people? How is, all of these, like porn addiction, talking about spouses cheating, divorce, they talk about somebody getting divorced very young, and how it still is so scandalous within the faith to get divorced. And so having more of a public spotlight on that, I think, is very helpful, or can be very helpful. The thing that I think is a detriment is the LDS Church has a PR, very, very savvy PR team. This is reality TV. So it is what it is. It's reality TV. There are reality TV aspects to it, dramatized aspects to it, that the things that people see might not always be the whole picture. And so I think that will be a very easy way for people to deflect or to dismiss really very real issues that get brought up, like with this show. You started to just list things. Every episode, there are all kinds of things that come up. And again and again and again, I'm seeing people say, well, it's reality TV, so we're going to dismiss it. And so I'm very worried that because of the vehicle that is giving this spotlight to this religion is easily dismissed. And so I'm worried that in an effort to downplay or be able to sidestep away from these issues, I'm sure the LDS Church's PR team will say, it's reality TV. Come on, nobody takes it seriously. And nobody is quite sure how dramatized it is or what is actually happening. And so I'm very worried that while it is bringing up very important issues, for people who want to dismiss it, there is an easy way to do that.
I wonder if there's an opportunity in the moments of incorrectness. If you search, for example, the new Hugh Grant movie that's coming out this fall, Heretic, if you search that movie, some of the top video responses are a real Mormon responds to moments in the Heretic trailer and things like that. There's this correcting of the record that's happening in tandem. And I wonder if that ultimately can be good, because if my TikTok it knows that I like this show, but it's also giving me people who are in the faith kind of responding to it and having a platform to do that. Maybe that's productive.
I think it absolutely can be. I would definitely tell people look for a balanced look. There's a lot of people who've had a lot of experiences with the LDS church. And so, yeah, I have, there are people who are very good about saying, okay, this is what our scripture actually does say. This is what our beliefs actually are. But I would also say within the ex-Mormon community, there's a lot of people who can say, okay, without the weight of needing to defend an organization they belong to, that they can also say, okay, and this is also a reality, and this is also true. I think people are being more open about their experiences while being active and while also not. So I think it won't just be reality TV. It won't just be the Hugh Grant movie, even though that looks amazing. It will be a conversation. I think that the absolute best way to get rid of these stereotypes is having this conversation and getting a variety of viewpoints to see what is real, and that everyone does have different experiences with this organization and with this religion. And there are a lot of really valid ways to look at the religion.
Lindsay Van Allen, the host of CityCast Boise, our sister city, kinda. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I was so excited about this conversation. It was great. That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure and tell your friends about the show. We'll be back tomorrow morning with our guide to June. You won't want to miss it.